So you can thank Blue for making this video a little bit earlier, because he decided it was time to dig up our last bit of cassava. Hey guys, how's it going? It's Mike from OffGridHawaii, and today's episode is going to be all about cassava, things you need to know about growing it, cooking it, and there's some really important stuff when it comes to cooking it, so stick around for that part. So this is the cassava plant. It's great because it produces a lot of food and it's really easy to grow. So the first thing you're going to need to grow cassava is a cutting, and you can take the cuttings from any of the branches that grow out. They'll look like this at the ends, but there'll be like a thicker part that comes out of the ground. So one important thing that you want to keep in mind is you always want to plant these the right side up. So it's really easy when you have a long stick to figure out, but once they get smaller, they're kind of like the same size from the top and the bottom, so it's hard to tell. So what I like to do, so I don't forget, is I cut the bottom piece on an angle and the top straight across like that. And this is about how long you want them. I'd say it's almost a foot long, maybe 10 inches. And then you just stick this in the ground pretty much like 2/3 into the ground, and it's good to go. I'll take you over to like a garden bed and show you what that looks like. So to plant the cassava, you're just going to take the stick and you're going to push it into the ground. Just leave a little bit sticking out like that. And that's it. Alright, so I want to talk a little bit about what it takes to plant it as far as soil, how much you need and how to feed them and stuff like that. So they don't need an incredible amount of soil, but they do need some. I would say at least 6 inches of soil covered with maybe like 3-4 inches of mulch over that. So 7 inches total, but the mulch is going to compress down as it grows. You may have to mound up some more mulch depending if the roots start to show, because you don't want the roots to stick out of the ground at all. They'll actually become more like wooden and they won't be edible anymore. So you want to make sure the roots are always underneath at least mulch, soil or mulch. As far as fertilizing goes, I just fertilize once as I plant them, and then that's it. No more after that. And that should be enough fertilizer, just once when you first plant them, and that's it. There's 2 ways that I'm planting them here. One is just to exclusively use one bed and plant all cassava in it. And then some other beds I have like a mixture. I have some oregano, some eggplant, some papayas even, and it's more like a guild where there's a lot of different plants growing in one bed. Cassava takes about 10 months before you can harvest it, and you can maybe even harvest it a little earlier and even up to a year after, but after that it just starts to get too big and the roots kind of go wooden and they get bitter. So you want to harvest it in that window of like 9 to 12 months. So that's pretty good. It's a big window, and you can harvest one week and then each week harvest a plant. One of the bad things about cassava is though it doesn't keep very well. So after you harvest, say, a bunch of roots, you don't have much time before you have to eat them. I'm sure a refrigerator would help. It's something we don't have. And what they do in stores is they coat them in wax, but we're obviously not going to do that here. One of the things you can do to help the situation is you could either leave some buried, so just take one root out at a time, and you could even leave them on the plant if you want, or you can put them in a bucket somewhere, which I've done before. I just like put them in a bucket and cover them all with mulch, and that tends to like make them last a little longer. I think what happens is when they dry out, that's when they get bad. So you want to keep them moist either with soil or mulch in a bucket after you harvest them. Or you can cook it all and it lasts longer like that, I think, if you cook it and then save it that way. So this is one of the roots I harvested the other day, and you could already see it's going bad. It's got black, like rotten stuff looking in it. So this one is no good anymore. But this is the one I just harvested, and it's a different variety. You could tell it's more yellow, and this is the sweeter, better variety. And what you have to do to cut it is right in the center here, there's like this piece of wood that you want to get out. So the best way to do that is to cut it in quarters. And then cut out the middle like that. And in here is where the wood is. You can see a little piece there. But you do it to all of the corners of the quarters. And then after you do that, you can just cut little cubes like that. Now for the most important part, cooking it. And I say that because this cassava here contains cyanide, and it has to be cooked properly in order to get it all out so you don't get stomachache. As I was mentioning before, that I have two different varieties here. One is sweet and one's a little bit bitter. The bitter one I don't think I'm going to grow anymore. This one is way better tasting, and it cooks quicker and has less cyanide, so it's less cook time. But still, you want to cook it almost the same way, it's just a little less. So I have this pot, and maybe there's a quarter of it filled with there, and I'm gonna fill the rest with water. So it's kind of like boiling pasta. You want to do a lot of water versus like a little bit of cassava. The other one, I do have some tricks to making it taste better, to getting the bitterness out. I add like a teaspoon of salt while I'm cooking it, and that seems to get rid of the bitterness, and that one cooks for about an hour. This one I don't need the salt, and it cooks for about a half hour and it's done. And this one gets softer than that one. I'm sure if you cook that really long it would start to get soft, but this one's just way easier, it tastes better, and less cyanide. One more thing I want to mention about the two different varieties is that the other one, the bitter one, it does produce a lot more food. Like the roots are gigantic on that one. And the plant grows maybe like 10 feet tall versus the other one grows maybe like 6 feet. So if you have a lot of people to feed, or you just want to grow that variety, it's still a good idea to grow it if you want. Just for us, we find that it's way too much food usually, and not that it's a bad thing, but I feed some to the dog, I feed some to the chickens, they like it. So the cook time actually ended up being a little bit less, 20 minutes. And I'm pretty sure it's done. I had some already. It's like soft and it tastes good. You can eat it just like this if you want. You can mash it, put a little salt and olive oil or something. You could also mash it, and then I make patties and then fry them. It's like a fritter, and that's really good. You could eat it with ketchup or like a dipping sauce. It's real good. Alright guys, that's going to be it for this video. Please leave your questions below. If I forgot anything, let me know. The only thing I think I forgot, which I'll tell you now, is the spacing on them. What I do is about 2 feet apart from each other. One other thing too is that the difference between the two varieties, the stem here on the sweet one is green, and on the bitter one it's like purple. So it's like the new growth that comes, because eventually it all turns like that brown wooden. but the new part is like green on this one and it's purple on the other one.